Now you see why I'm not good at segues.
I feel like you could have been like, so from talking about why, Myst being remastered or reimagined, we wanted to move on to a very similar but different topic.
Well, see, I don't have to do that because you just did that now.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for the segue. I'll take it. Yes, Alex, you're absolutely right. we do want to talk about that. Specifically, there are a few concepts that go around old games when they get updated. There are remakes, there are remasters, and there are reboots. Those are usually the three terms. Do you want to try and explain what the differences are? Maybe we can work together on this.
No, I don't want to. No, so yeah, I had told you I was interested because there's a lot of reboots, remasters, reimaginings, all those things coming, especially lately, as we just discussed on the previous segment. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Link in the description below.
If I'm smart.
Yeah, if you're smart.
I don't think I am.
No. But yeah, there's a lot of different terms that go around for these things, and there's a ton of games that have been coming out recently in the last few years that are either a remaster of an old game or a reboot to a game, such as the DMC Devil May Cry was like kind of a soft reboot for the series, which didn't necessarily... I don't even want to get into that one, really. But then there's the remasters, or whatever they call them, in the case of, like, Kingdoms of Amalor, Re-Reckoning, Diablo Resurrected, StarCraft 2, whatever the hell they called that.
That one?
Or, sorry, StarCraft 1, whatever they called it, Remaster, Warcraft Reforged, and we're not even gonna get into how much we are not happy with Blizzard Activision currently, but as examples...
Yeah.
Many reasons, but there's a ton of those games that have been coming out recently. So, I think a remaster, as we just kind of went over with a little bit of Myst, a remaster is taking a game and kind of... It's not the reimagining they did with Myst. I don't think a remaster is taking a game and upgrading either the hardware capabilities or the graphics, but not really kind of touching any of the gameplay elements, I feel like.
Yeah, what you usually see with remasters, it's usually prefaced with, like, HD remasters.
Yeah.
And what they typically... That's probably the softest version of the upgrading process, because it's usually, like, a lot of up-resing from the original, or placing it on the next console or the newer hardware.
Right.
So that it can run on that. They don't usually touch any of the assets.
Right.
Or do any of the user interface upgrades or anything like that.
Or in the case of Skyrim, they don't touch anything but the textures.
Yeah, they touch. Yeah, we get some god rays. But actually, when we get into that part, that even starts to fall a little bit more into some upgrade territory. That's more than that. Well, those are special editions. Those are Those
it's really just a remaster.
Yeah, or a modification to the original game.
Or you download it for free on the Nexus mod store and get a 4K resolution texture pack for Skyrim.
There you go. Yeah.
For free.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Yeah.
I actually have the 2K for Fallout and Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just makes everything look nicer.
Oh, sure. Oh, Gearbox actually did something similar with the Borderlands. I think if you have, like, the Borderlands, like the Handsome Collection or the original one...
Oh, the GOTY edition?
Yeah, the game... They actually had, like, 4K packs that you could download if you have the new hardware, so that you can play it all in native. But, so, remasters, the softest version of this, I would say that remakes are probably the next step up.
Right.
That's really where we get into literally changing assets themselves, doing complete new remodels of all of the textures, the character designs, if you had sprites originally, turning them into 3D models, differences in how the gameplay works too, trying to make it more user-friendly, tightening the controls, stuff like that. But the game itself is still essentially the same.
Right, you're telling the same story, you're doing the same type of stuff in the game, but you're taking, either the technical limitations from before away. Like if you do a remake of Deus Ex, for instance, it would be, hey, here's the original game, except in today's tech, remade, not just remastered to look nicer. It will play nicer.
Right.
In the instance of our first topic, when we talked about Myst, I believe I would call the real Myst that they came out with a remaster.
Okay.
Because it upscaled everything graphics wise, but it made everything also a lot smoother for playing. But it also gave you both the original point and click style that you could do, but it also gave you could do the fully explorable WSAD free roam around as well, which you could not do it all in the beginning. So it's more than just all the upgrade to textures and files and images and everything, because they had to make it so you could now walk around. So it gave the gameplay a whole different depth of being able to play the game and explore the game.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I can see what you're saying, where that feels a little bit more like a remaster than a remake. Just because in remakes, I feel like there's a lot more asset changes. And I suppose the newer version of Myst that they just came out with is more along that line, because they actually did go in and modernize so many of the actual assets themselves.
Yeah.
So, and then we have reboots, which is
like DMC Devil May Cry.
like DMC Devil May Cry. That's a whole different carton of eggs.
Yeah. That is Ghostbusters from whenever that came out in 2013. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
That is when you that is the actual reimagining the entire game to tell a different story or a different point of view from the story, or to tell the same story in a different way. Or I don't know, for games, how many reboots we typically get. God of War, the newest one, I want to say, was kind of a reboot to this franchise.
Tomb Raider, when they started the Survivor series, that was Lara's story from the beginning, actually from before the original game. So that was a completely different story, but like just taking that in a whole different direction. Yeah, there's been a few. There's some people that might argue. I don't know if they would necessarily argue that, but I'm thinking like with Legend of Zelda, it's kind of a different thing altogether, because I think that they all fit into the same timeline, so that it's not necessarily Link rebooting.
There's a game theory about that.
Maybe that's too much to get into.
The extended there's an extended Zelda timeline.
Yeah, that's it. There's a deep in the weeds for that. Oh,
there is.
I would say maybe like Metroid Prime. When that came out, I feel like you could have made the case for that was a reboot of the series.
Sure. Yeah, but typically the reboots is either taking an old franchise that kind of died off a little bit or hasn't seen anything in a while, and you're kind of rebooting it to like, oh hey, this is still relevant. You know, kind of like Duke Nukem. Which one was the Duke Nukem that just came out forever? A couple years back that Gearbox finally did after 12 years?
Yeah. I think it was more like 14 and...
whatever it was too long.
And yet not long enough at the same time.
Yes, not long enough. Or for instance, we could call Psychonauts 2 after 13 years?
16
years. Yeah. We could call Psychonauts 2, even though it's a direct sequel to the game, I would also classify it as a reboot to that franchise.
Possibly.
Because it was kind of like, you know, it hasn't been seen, they've done nothing with it for years. People were like, you should make a sequel. And they're like, all right, well, here's a sequel. And it's like, all right, now people are interested in this game again.
Right.
So a reboot can do that a lot of times, too.
Right. See, usually when I think about reboots, though, I think they're, like, going back and telling, like, the origin story again, or they're, like, reintroducing the character. So I kind of now see what you're saying about 2, because I don't think anybody really remember anything about what Raz or any of the characters did.
and then in the case of the new God of War game that came out, it would have been God of War 4. Right. Well, aside from, like, Chains of Olympus or whatever on the PSP they had, we don't count that.
We don't talk about
mainline games. Yeah. But, like, that hadn't had a game come out in years for that series. And, you know, it's not telling a story that comes before Kratos was, you know, the god of war, or his adventures before murdering his wife and child. At the beginning, at the beginning of the first God of War game, if you never played it, spoilers.
If you didn't play the first hour of the first God of War.
Yeah. Like, it didn't tell that story of him when he was a soldier in the army, or a general in the army, whatever the hell he was. This is telling a story after 3. It's a continuation of years later.
Sure.
So I would still call that kind of reboot, because it's, again, the reintroduction to the series from a point of it hasn't been out in a while.
Sure.
DMC Devil May Cry, because that is the actual title of that game.
Yes.
As I've talked about on the old show, I was like, you know, it's in the timeline of events, it fits as the precursor to the first chronological game in that series, which is Devil May Cry 3. Was technically like the first timeline for that mainline games, but this one would have come before that, because it tells like the origin story of Dante, kind of.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Not that they went anywhere with the reboot. They went reboot and then a totally different game with DMC like 5.
Yeah.
So
I played
who knows?
5. 5 was good. But
I have it on my wish list. I haven't played it yet.
Well, knowing how you feel about DMC, you'll probably prefer 5. But it does get me to think about like long-running series though too. And the thing that just popped in my head was about Assassin's Creed. That's gone through a few different iterations, a lot of them. But I would say that if we were looking at the point where the series really rebooted, it was probably with Origins. Because they completely changed over how the combat works, how the open world areas work. They wanted to do a very big overhaul of the series. In fact, they actually took a separate year off. Ubisoft took another year off just to try and fix that after the a couple kind of disasters that they had before that. Unity! But besides Unity, and then no one played Syndicate, unfortunately, even though that was really good, because Unity had been such a tire fire. And so then they came back with Origins, and they said, well, we're completely changing over the combat, and we're also taking this back to the very beginning of the Brotherhood as we know it. And we're going to tell, essentially, the origin story of the Assassin's Brotherhood, the Brotherhood of Assassins. New characters in the modern day as well, like all of the stuff with Desmond was gone. They took it with Layla, was the new character, whole new storyline there, but still with some of the characters and the lore of the original games. So that's really where they probably changed over with the reboot. So you can do it with long-running series as well. Theoretically, if Beyond Good and Evil, the next one came out, it would be a true reboot, because no one... It's all different characters as far as I can tell. But
yeah,
if you ever you're not going to get it. Anyway. But I was curious, now that we've actually explained what they all are.
Yeah, thanks for the intro to the episode. Now we can get into Meet This podcast.
We can actually talk about stuff. I was wondering if you had some particular titles that would fall into these categories that you might actually recommend, and if
that I would recommend. That one's hard.
That you would highlight or recommend.
See, I was hoping. All right, we can do a thing real quick. I was hoping we could actually talk about like, fuck. We could talk about fuck. No, I wanted to actually talk about how remasters aren't always fantastic. Sometimes, like sometimes they're okay, but sometimes I would like to give an example of a remaster currently.
Okay.
And this is Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Great.
Did you play in the beta weekend at all?
I only play in alphas. No, I didn't play. I didn't get to play the beta.
So Blizzard had a open beta weekend for free for Diablo 2 Resurrected a couple weeks back. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this because I want to see if the game is anything I'm interested in buying or purchasing or torrenting legally. So I was like, all right, it's free. I'm gonna download it. I'm gonna play it for this weekend and see if I like it. If I want to even throw any money at this or not, or whatever. It is perfectly acceptable to pirate Blizzard games currently. What did I say that? No, we do not advertise piracy.
We don't give legal advice. Please don't ask us to do. We don't provide legal counsel.
So Diablo 2 Remastered is taking all the graphics. Oh, sorry, Resurrected is Diablo 2 in all its glory. All the graphics are absolutely great. It looks amazing, and it's very true to being Diablo 2. Excellent. Also, the 5s and 6s are now discernible text from each other.
Wow. Okay, what we were all looking forward to finally got.
Because you couldn't tell what they were. Yeah. So everything looks way nicer. You know, I will say it looks fantastic, and it supports 4K resolution, and it has that gimmicky thing that a lot of these games, like even the Command & Conquer Red Alert Remaster has, which you can swap between the original graphics of the game and then the 2 or 4K HD version of the game.
Oh yeah.
On the fly, and be like, oh yeah, I want to see what this looks like there, and you can swap it back, and it's like, whoa, this is so cool.
Oh yeah.
It's gimmicky because it's like, yeah, I can play it looking like that if I want to, but why?
Right.
Like, it doesn't. It looks so terrible. So first of all, Diablo 2 graphics don't look great when upscaled to a 4K resolution at all when it's the old game graphics.
Yeah.
It looks terrible. It's like, oh, I can't believe I played the game looking like this back in '98. But so for all the glory of the game looking better,
yeah,
as a remaster, they didn't really touch anything else gameplay wise.
No.
Which honestly disappointed me. Because I was like, Diablo 2 was a fantastic game. You and I have probably both sunk hundreds of hours to that over the years. Yeah. When it was still a thing. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like there are just a few tweaks they could have made to make quality of life so much better. Like with the mouse, with the hitboxes on monsters, being able to hit them without like misclicking slightly and not even trying to hit them at all.
Yeah.
The little pawns in Act 1 outside of Tristram. Where you, Sanctuary. Sorry.
Sanctuary.
Where you, the little ponds there in the water, they added so you can see your reflections in them, which is cool. But you can't walk over them. You can't walk through those. They just present an unpassable terrain. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you not just make it so you can walk through that?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't even game breaking. It's quality of life to make this game go from conserving space on a hard drive before, I'm sure is the reason why, to like making it so that this game feels so much better to play.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about remasters. It's fine to make things look better, but if it doesn't feel better to play, I don't really see the point. Unless you're a huge nostalgia fan and want to feel, oh yeah, this feels like a game from '98, but looks like a game from 2021.
Yeah. It's, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It feels like, I wasn't a huge fan of Diablo 3, compared to Diablo 2, just because I like Diablo 2. Yeah.
Playing the remaster of Diablo 2, I now wish they'd taken the game engine from Diablo 3.
I was just gonna say. Yeah.
And taking it to create the overhauled version, remastered of Diablo 2, with a much more better pacing and more in-depth and rich environment. Like, that would have been, like, screw the resurrected Diablo 2. Make Diablo 2 reimagined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take it and throw it in there into the Diablo 3 engine with all the overhaul for the same system of Diablo 2, with all the trees and the perks, the skill tree and the items and all that stuff from Diablo 2, throw it in Diablo 3 and just make that a thing. Yeah. And I would been like, here's my fucking wallet, Blizzard. I don't care what's going on with you right now. I will give you the money because Diablo 3 functionally was great, but it got repetitive. because there are only so many options for your builds. You know, you can do whatever you want with all the skills and the runes, but I would have preferred the skill system from Diablo 2.
Oh yeah, with the different skill trees. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
prefer
with
that.
the masteries and all that. So if they had taken Diablo 2 and thrown it into Diablo 3 and given you all the stuff from Diablo 2, but in a better package, I've been like, here's my wallet.
Yeah.
I will play the shit out of this game for hundreds of hours.
Oh yeah, and it kind of makes you. I wonder if anyone's tried to do. This is interesting. I gotta look this up. I'm wondering if anyone's tried to do a mod for Diablo 3 that just reimagines Diablo 2 using the 3 engine.
I don't know if they can. I don't know how easy that is for people to do. I don't know if Blizzard really lets people mod their games that much these days.
I'm guessing probably not.
Since it's all DRM, but if anyone's got that or knows about that, let me know, and I want that suddenly.
Yeah, I do. Or, hey, just make Diablo 2 in Skyrim. Everybody makes a mod for Skyrim.
Perfect. Everybody wins.
Everybody
I mean,
wins.
honestly, you could probably do that easier.
Yeah, you probably could do it far easier than that.
Yeah, so as we're talking about remasters and reboots and stuff like that, that's the remaster. Like, if you really were a fan of Diablo 2 and you want the Diablo 2 experience in 4K graphics, like, maybe it's for you. But if you don't really want a game that still feels like you're playing in 1998, you're not going to enjoy this.
Right. It gets me thinking about a couple examples that kind of jump off of that. The first one is when they did the Halo Anniversary. That functionally is exactly the same, but they did change some of the graphics around. And there is a point where you can, with a button press, look at what the original graphics are and go, oh, we thought that looked good back then. Whoops.
And I think that's what that gimmick is for in a lot of these games. It's like, remember what this game used to look like? It's like, oh, I would like to forget now.
So
why would you do this to me?
So there was always that, but it functionally plays the same, which is fine because Halo plays fine anyway. As far as shooters on consoles go, especially, but just the shooter aspect, it did do a great job with that. So why change what works? But the one that actually did take the modern technology and applied it back to the original game that I remember from recent times was when Yakuza did the first 2 games as Kiwami and Kiwami 2. When they did that, they actually took the original game, they put it in the modern Dragon engine, and they changed the whole framework of it for the experience system and the changes that they did to the different fighting styles that you could do. They took it from the most recent game, but they applied it to the original games.
Yeah.
They applied it back to the original games, and you can tell pretty easily how much of an improvement that ends up becoming, because it plays so much better and it looks so much better. Like, they actually took their modern technology, they applied it to the original games. That is basically like what we're talking about we hope they would do with Diablo 2. But they actually did it with Kiwami and Kiwami 2. So, you know, and then, hey, good news, you can also still play slot car racing with the... because Yakuza craziest series. But,
So on the flip side of a recommended game, a game that we both do like, and I think you've played this one too, is Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning.
Yes.
And you and I were both fans of the original game when it came out, but we also had agreed, and the community at large agreed, that one of the biggest issues with that game was the camera.
The camera was tricky. Yeah.
And the camera was tied so closely to your character in third person over the shoulder view that it wasn't good, because the art direction in this game was phenomenal. It's beautiful. You know, you don't get Seth MacFarlane on your fucking game to make it look that good and then screw over the camera that badly.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest things Re-Reckoning did, aside from having the Fatesworn DLC that they also added as well, is they did a lot of fixing to it for a lot of combat things. They tweaked it, they balanced it a bit better, I think. But they also gave you the FOV slider, which was missing from the original game. And I played that. I haven't finished it. I played it about as much as I played the original one, which is like, I'm playing it. I'm now bored. But that's me as a gamer.
Right.
So with that FOV slider, you can be like, all right, here's your original position, and here's your camera. Oh wait, here's your camera. Look at all that view you've got. Look at the skybox you can see.
Oh yeah, I remember you said, "Hey Nathan, do you remember this owl that was on that tree?" And I was
Yeah, and you're
like,
like,
"No, you could never see the owl on the tree."
yeah, you couldn't, because you couldn't turn the camera up to see it because it was tied too tightly.
Right.
So as a remaster, I think that one did a good job because they not only um, they took the graphics, made them better, upscaled it to current graphics generation, which is nice. It looks smoother. But they also bounced and tweaked it and gave you a couple more features that the original game doesn't have.
Right.
Which I think is a quality of life improvement that remasters should strive for.
Oh yeah.
If you're gonna try and sell people on a game for nostalgia, that's one thing. But if you're gonna say it's remastered and better now, but it still plays the same and functions exactly the same,
Yeah.
it's like I still have StarCraft 1 on CD somewhere. Why do I
yeah.
need a remaster?
Exactly. I mean, they need to do that so they can get your money.
Yeah, they want the money.
They want the money.
Just throw my money at you.
Exactly. Also, not Seth MacFarlane, Todd McFarlane.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of the guy who made Family Guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wrong guy.
I was like, Seth
Different
MacFarlane.
art style entirely.
Yeah, that, and trust me, the games he worked on, very different.
I think we need someone to mod Kingdoms of Amalur
so that it looks like
with the
Family
art
Guy.
style of Seth MacFarlane, so it's Family Guy art style.
Yeah, exactly. We need Kingdoms of Giggity. What we what,
No.
we need to call this something. I don't know what. I'm kind of scared. Kingdoms of American Dad. Something Dark Side Amalor.
There you go.
That sounds fine. But one of the ones that actually jumps out at me in terms of remakes that I was very impressed by, having not actually played the original series, but I finally got the chance to do it with the remakes, and I got to look at the original titles, was when they did Spyro.
Yeah.
And that was very impressive. They did the Spyro Trilogy, and they completely changed that over. And when you start to look at what the original game looked like, the poly graphics that they had, and the brand new character models and everything, and also that they did really try to improve the gameplay and make it more user friendly and make it feel better in your hands. They did such an excellent job, and then packaging it as all three games, because each one of them probably is only about 10 hours each, so you get like this 30-hour long experience that feels much richer and also cohesive, because now they all look the same too through all three of the games, and they I know they did it with Crash Bandicoot too, but I wanted to throw my controller at the Crash Bandicoot. But with the Spyro, I mean, being able to look the same, sound the same for all of them, just made the three of them feel like a much more cohesive package in general. But also, it looked better, it played better, and seeing it in the way they did those 3D graphics and made it look so nice.
Yeah.
It reminded you like of the golden age of platformers.
Right.
And when I played it, I started thinking to myself, like, they just don't make games like this anymore.
They don't. Platformers died.
Platformers unfortunately died, and even if they made them, they would try to sell you the microtransaction to make it fun after the fact.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do it with that, and so I was very, very impressed with the work that they did on Spyro, at least as far as remakes go. How about reboots, though? Have you experienced any of those that you really liked? The franchise actually...
I mean, again, not as much. DMC and Mike Rise about the only reboot title I think I've really played that I can think of offhand.
Sure. And that didn't really work so well for you.
No, I loved DMC Devil May Cry.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed that. It felt great to play because it was the same visceral combat system that you love in if you like DMC games, it was the same visceral combat system you love in those. The story was just as sarcastic and well done
Mm-hmm.
And quirky and just silly in places as per tongue-in-cheek humor that Devil May Cry has always had,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's got an edgy Dante, which is always Dante. So, I mean, no, I really did enjoy it, and I
Okay.
think it's spiritually should be the first in the series,
Yeah. Okay.
despite what anyone thinks.
Sure. Sure. I think I actually have a few of them, if I can remember what they all are. I would say real briefly, because I talked about Deus Ex, they eventually did essentially do a reboot with Human Revolution.
Yeah.
And I did like what they did with Human Revolution, and they did a very good job, and that was more of an origin story that takes place before the original games.
I mean, I do have Assassin's Creed Origins, but I didn't play any other Assassin's Creeds, really, so...
Yeah, yeah.
I can't compare it, but I do, I think it's good, you know?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Just looking through my game list right now.
Yeah, to see what else is in there. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that there were a few others that I was going to touch on. Though, I mean, the one that I was going to mention was in similar... I mentioned it before, but when they did the Survivor series for Lara Croft, and they took it back to the origin story for her, Crystal Dynamics did those games.
Oh, yeah.
Did that trilogy, and they did a very good job with them. Yeah.
On Crystal Dynamics as well, though, who is owned by Square Enix, I believe.
Yes.
I'm thinking they might be doing something with the Soul Reaver and Legacy of Kain games, potentially.
Oh,
maybe.
Really? Okay.
Because Legacy of Kain Defiance is on Steam, right?
Yeah.
But they took it off the Steam store. I think it's back on. They did something to it.
Okay.
Did they update it? They might have. At one point, they had taken it off the store, I think, because it was super not optimized to play on PC.
Fair.
But I'm hoping they do a remaster of those games. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
just something.
Yeah. I was very happy when they rebooted the Hitman franchise as well. The newer Hitman and Hitman 2, where they did more of the open world versions of those missions where you could complete them in any way, and it actually functionally worked a lot better than the old games where I would just get found out immediately no matter what I tried because it was so random.
Yeah.
I thought that the layout of those was a big improvement I was really glad they rebooted that. But the one that I do really want to recommend, if anyone has not played it, I would say, is when they did Prey.
Yeah.
The original Prey was a pretty straightforward shooter that had a few little twisty elements to it. I would have really liked to see what they were doing with Prey 2 that turned into Vaporware, the idea of doing like a alien bounty hunter thing that sounded really cool. But when they decided to just do a straight-up reboot, renamed it Prey, and they set it on that station, and you had to deal with the Typhon, the way that they presented that whole thing was a little bit horror, a little bit sci-fi, a little bit stealth, and just had some really great elements to it that you really didn't see anywhere else. And so, in a lot of ways, they kind of just took the name and a few of the elements from the original, but they completely changed how it played and what it looked like. And that was Arcane Studios, and they have a very good track record. I was very happy with what they did there. So, some good examples out there, but you could probably find a lot more that were bad.
Yeah, a few bad examples too. Like, I don't know much about what happened with Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Yeah, not gonna think about it.
Apparently lots of not happiness from everybody is what I remember from it, so...
Yeah, something too about the people who had the game originally, and it got upgraded and somehow became worse than the original.
Yeah, I remember it being like, this is even worse.
Yeah, it's... Sometimes it backfires and it throws up in your face, and yeah. I think you could probably also put Duke Nukem Forever in that category, because I think they were trying to, like...
I don't want to even put that in a category, I just want to put it in the trash.
Yeah, I think everybody else did. You might as well just do that, too. But no, there are some good ones out there. If you happen to have any recommendations for reboots, remasters, remakes, please shoot us a message. You can send us a voice message over on Anchor, or shoot us a text. Do all of those things. You have
Yeah,
ways of
those
getting in touch with us.
voice messages would be fun, because if you have comments about one of those games or something you want to say and not just type and have it come and be featured in a future episode, we can do that.
Yeah, I think we have the ability to do those. Pretty sure.
Someone here does. It's not me.
Yeah, someone has the technology. I wish I knew who it was. Maybe it's one of us.